A tale of loyalty across the stars, how a galactic mission to conquer Earth turned into a journey of companionship, as one alien dog discovered that true greatness lies not in power or control, but in the simple, unbreakable bond between a boy and his dog on a blue planet called home. Far across the stars, in the glimmering constellation of Canis Major, there existed a planet unlike any other realm, governed not by humans, not by machines, but by dogs. This was the dog star Sirius, the celestial homeland of an ancient and proud canine civilization. On this planet, dogs had long since evolved past their primal roots, developing advanced technology, disciplined social structures, and a sense of purpose that extended far beyond tail wagging and bone chewing. They were thinkers, leaders, and warriors of their own kind, organized under a powerful ruling body known as the Greater Canine Council. Generations ago, the Council devised a grand initiative to spread canine order across the galaxy. Earth had been chosen as a test colony, a planet ripe for subtle influence. Their plan was deceptively simple: send out the best and brightest of their species to inhabit the Earth, and through patience and persistence, dominate the human race. The dogs were not meant to conquer with violence, but to assume their rightful position as Earth's ruling class through leadership, loyalty, and strategy. Dogs would become the protectors and decision-makers of Earth, subtly guiding humans to a better path while affirming the superiority of their own species. Centuries passed. Earth's dogs were expected to complete their mission, return victorious, and prepare Earth for its formal induction into the Sirius Empire. But Sirius received no reports, no acknowledgments, no signs that Earth's dogs were progressing in their purpose. The silence was unsettling. The Council began to suspect that something had gone terribly wrong. To investigate the situation, they dispatched a young agent, an eager, disciplined border terrier named Hubble. Still in his prime, Hubble had studied canine history and theory with precision. His understanding of the Earth mission was flawless. To him, failure was not an option. He was equipped with stealth technology, interstellar communication gear, and a vessel disguised to appear like a meteor to the eyes of Earthlings. His orders were to evaluate the status of Earth's dogs, determine the integrity of the original mission, and prepare a formal report for the incoming inspection by the Greater Canine Council. Hubble's descent to Earth was uneventful at first. As his vessel pierced the atmosphere, it trailed a brilliant tail of light, appearing to the humans below as a simple shooting star. His destination was a quiet suburban town nestled among winding streets, neatly trimmed lawns, and fenced yards, an environment full of domestic tranquility. As the ship landed, hidden beneath the dense trees of a modest backyard, it sent out a subtle ripple in the surrounding air, disturbing birds and rattling a few window panes. Among those who noticed was Owen Baker, an 11-year-old boy with a curious mind and a quiet heart. Owen had always been different from his peers, more thoughtful, more observant, and often lost in dreams. He had always wanted a dog, but had never been given the opportunity. His fascination with animals extended beyond simple affection. He studied them, understood them, and longed for companionship that transcended words. So when he saw the faint glow behind his backyard that evening, something instinctual pulled him to investigate. What Owen found was not a crater of fire and smoke, but a small, disoriented terrier with intelligent eyes and a sense of urgency in his movements. Hubble, shaken but unharmed, had successfully landed, but the crash had damaged his communication beacon. The boy knelt beside the dog, unaware of his alien origin, and took him home without hesitation. To the family, it was as though the universe had finally answered Owen's wish. Hubble, now named by his new human companion, entered a world of carpeted floors, snack cabinets, and weekend barbecues, things he neither understood nor respected. While Owen celebrated the arrival of his new friend, Hubble wasted no time in initiating his mission. Under the cover of night, he roamed the neighborhood, mapping canine positions and identifying targets for evaluation. What he found deeply disturbed him. The dogs of Earth had not risen to power. They had not assumed leadership or bent humans to their will. Instead, they lived lives of unparalleled comfort, behaving not as rulers, but as pets. They fetched sticks, rolled on their backs for belly rubs, and waited eagerly for scraps from the dinner table. Worse still, they appeared to relish this lifestyle. Hubble's first survey of the local canines only reinforced his growing concern. Barbara, a prim and dainty poodle, strutted around in decorative collars and basked in her human's affection. Wilson, a boxer with a fierce bark and a gentle heart, stood guard not against human misbehavior, but against passing mail trucks. Nellie, a hyperactive mutt, lived for chasing butterflies and greeting the neighborhood kids. And then there was Shep, an old bloodhound with a sagging face and a wise, patient demeanor. Once a dog of dignity, Shep now spent his days sunbathing on the porch, dreaming of distant memories. None of them remembered their mission. None of them showed the slightest interest in taking control. They had surrendered completely to the life of domesticity. Hubble, horrified by this discovery, tried to reactivate their memories. Using what little technology remained operational from his ship, he created simulations and projected images of Sirius, trying to reawaken the dormant instincts buried within their minds. But the Earth dogs resisted. They laughed off the stories of canine superiority, preferring their current lives of leisure and love. To them, domination was a distant and absurd idea. Why would they want to rule over beings who offered them everything: food, shelter, play, and unconditional love? It was during these trials that something extraordinary happened. Owen began to hear Hubble's thoughts. The exposure to the alien technology during the crash had granted the boy a unique ability, one that allowed him to perceive canine thought patterns as coherent speech. At first, Owen was stunned, but the more time he spent with Hubble, the more he accepted the impossible. They began to communicate freely, sharing thoughts, ideas, and perspectives. Owen learned of Sirius, of the mission, and of the judgment to come. And Hubble, in turn, began to see the world through the boy's eyes. Together, they worked to persuade the neighborhood dogs to embrace their forgotten purpose. Owen urged them to at least remember who they were and what they had once set out to do. He believed that if they could blend their past strength with their current compassion, they could present a compelling case to the incoming council. Hubble, though still skeptical of human emotions, started to entertain the possibility that Earth's dogs had not failed, but evolved. Their efforts were met with mixed results. Some dogs, like Wilson, were intrigued by the concept of ancient honor. Others, like Barbara, refused to give up their pampered lives. Shep, torn between memory and contentment, admitted that he once believed in the mission, but had chosen to stay for the love he received from his humans. Each dog wrestled with the revelation in their own way. The memories were faint, the instinct weaker than the warmth of a blanket or the joy of a tail wag. Still, Hubble pressed on, desperate to prepare the dogs for what was coming. He managed to repair part of his communication device, enough to detect the signal. The mothership was approaching. The Great Canine Council had dispatched an inspection fleet. The moment of reckoning had arrived. Earth's dogs would be judged. If they were found unworthy, they would be recalled and reassigned, and Earth would be abandoned. The tension spread quickly among the dogs. The very idea of leaving their homes, their families, and their human companions filled them with dread. Hubble, for all his training, began to feel the same weight in his chest. Owen noticed the change. The once rigid terrier now lingered longer in the sunlight, chased squirrels with childlike glee, and even curled up at Owen's feet during quiet evenings. Slowly, the alien agent became something more, something unmistakably earthly. He became a dog. The night before the inspection, the neighborhood gathered under the stars. The dogs formed a solemn circle in the park, while their humans, unaware of the galactic drama unfolding, enjoyed their weekend routines. Owen stood nearby, sensing the magnitude of what was coming. Hubble addressed the group, trying one last time to prepare them, to ready their minds and spirits. But the dogs, instead of submitting to old commands, began sharing what their lives meant to them now. They spoke not of power, but of companionship. They recalled moments of laughter, healing, and trust. They described the children they protected, the elderly they comforted, and the bonds that had grown over time. Their loyalty was no longer tied to orders from the stars. It was grounded in Earth's soil, in the beating hearts of the humans they loved. The light came silently. A brilliant column from the sky descended onto the field, bathing the dogs in an ethereal glow. Above, cloaked in invisibility, the massive structure of the Sirius mothership hovered with interstellar majesty. The dogs stood still, tails low, eyes wide. Hubble walked forward, steeling himself for the confrontation. The Great Dane leader of the council would arrive shortly. The fate of Earth's dogs rested on the coming moments. And thus the first part of the story concluded with the arrival of the ancient authority and the hearts of Earth's dogs hanging in the balance, torn between the duty of their origin and the love they had found in an unexpected world. The silence in the field was unlike any other. Dogs stood still under the penetrating beam of light from the Sirius mothership, their ears flicking, bodies tense, and eyes fixed skyward. The ground below them pulsed faintly, humming with the low vibration of an unseen celestial engine that had traveled galaxies to deliver judgment. The air shifted as an invisible door opened above. From the ship descended a holographic projection of the imposing image of the Greater Dane, supreme authority of the Canine Council. Towering in stature and cloaked in the symbols of his rank, he appeared not as a flesh-and-blood figure, but as an animated, radiant form composed of starlight and command. The council had arrived not for pleasantries, but for inspection. The dogs of Earth were summoned not as citizens, but as subordinates to a forgotten mission, One by one, neighborhood dogs stepped forward, each evaluated under the council's advanced metrics. Scanners swept over their forms, reading neurological activity, social behavior, muscle tone, and cognitive response. These dogs, however, no longer matched the data embedded in their original Sirius files. Where the files recorded soldiers, tacticians, and leaders, the council now saw nurturers, protectors, and emotional companions. The Great Dane's expression darkened with each passing moment. His officers exchanged glances, data flooding their systems, confirming what they feared. Earth's dogs had not fulfilled their purpose. They had assimilated into a life of service, but not of authority. In the council's eyes, they had devolved into soft, idle creatures, too preoccupied with affection to remember their supremacy. This outcome, to them, was more than failure. It was betrayal. Hubble stood to the side, watching, but no longer seeing the scene through the same lens as his superiors. His time on Earth had changed him deeply. Though still a creature of Sirius origin, he had come to understand what these dogs had gained. He had watched them interact with humans not as rulers or inferiors, but as equals in a strange, unspoken bond. He had seen the joy of companionship outweigh the illusion of control. In Earth's homes, dogs had not taken power but had created peace. The Great Dane addressed Hubble directly, demanding his assessment. It was the final report that would seal Earth's fate. Hubble hesitated. His training, logic, and loyalty to the Council weighed on him. But deeper still was a new understanding, one grown not from analysis, but from experience. In that moment, the once rigid emissary of Sirius found his voice not to defend failure, but to redefine success. Hubble stood between the Council's projection and the Earth dogs, his posture calm but resolved. He projected what he had learned not in cold data, but in experiential memory. The Council watched as Hubble shared moments from his time on Earth. Owen laughing in the grass while Hubble chased a ball, Nellie comforting a crying child during a thunderstorm, Wilson alerting his family during a nighttime fire alarm, Barbara resting her head gently on her elderly human's lap. These images formed a tapestry of purpose not based on dominance, but on care. The dogs had not failed. They had adapted. Still, the Council remained unconvinced. To them, such sentiment threatened the very integrity of the Sirius doctrine. The mission had been designed for order, not emotion. They prepared to activate the recall protocol, a process that would retrieve every dog on Earth and reset their programming. In that instant, the ships began to deploy invisible beams toward the planet's surface, silently locking on to the canines spread across the globe. But Earth had its own answer. From the streets and parks, houses and fields, humans began to gather. Drawn by an unseen pull or instinctive sense that something extraordinary was unfolding, families came out of their homes calling out for their pets. Children held leashes. Parents carried bowls of water. Elderly neighbors leaned on canes, looking toward the park with worried eyes. Owen was among them, riding his bike down the hill, his heart pounding with urgency. He had seen the light in the sky and knew where Hubble would be. When the humans reached the field, the Council hesitated. Humans should not have been part of the equation. The dogs were being judged for their failure to rise above the species that now approached. But what the Council saw next could not be dismissed. One by one, the dogs broke ranks and ran toward the humans. The reunion was immediate, pure, and overflowing with emotion. Wilson bounded into the arms of his young boy. Barbara was lifted and kissed by her stylish owner. Nellie's entire family enveloped her in a group hug. And Owen, tears streaking down his cheeks, embraced Hubble, burying his face into the little dog's neck. What followed was not chaos, but harmony. The field became a place of connection, a silent demonstration of something the Sirius Council had failed to anticipate. The bond between dogs and humans was not forged in power, but in mutual need. Humans offered home, security, and love. Dogs responded with loyalty, protection, and trust. They were not rulers and subjects, but companions of equal importance. In every embrace, every wagging tail, and every teary-eyed smile, a truth emerged. Earth's dogs had discovered something the Council never intended, but could no longer ignore. The Great Dane observed without speaking. The images overwhelmed the logic of protocol. His officers turned to him, awaiting instruction. Instead of ordering the recall, he signaled for a delay. For the first time in centuries, the Council reconsidered its judgment. The mission had changed. The Council would not erase what had evolved naturally. Earth's dogs would not be recalled. The proclamation came without fanfare. The projection of the Greater Dane blinked once, signaling the withdrawal of the recall beams. The mothership dimmed, its judgment complete. With one final scan, the Council uploaded a new report that classified the Earth dogs not as failures, but as pioneers of a new path. Earth would no longer serve as a colony for canine dominance. Instead, it would be classified as a symbiotic integration zone, where dogs and humans coexisted in emotional partnership. The council retracted the inspection fleet and turned back toward the stars. In the field below, no one spoke. The light receded. The sky returned to darkness. The dogs and humans remained locked in their embraces, unaware of how close they had come to separation. Hubble turned to Owen, still leaning against him. A quiet understanding passed between them, something deeper than words, beyond species. At that moment, the little dog from Sirius knew his journey was complete. But unlike the mission he was sent for, this journey ended not in success or failure, but in belonging. In the days that followed, the neighborhood returned to normal. Children played, dogs barked, and sprinklers whirred across lawns. The moment of cosmic judgment faded into memory, unknown to the broader world. To most humans, life continued unchanged. But for those few dogs and their humans in that sleepy suburb, the world had been touched by something larger. Hubble remained with Owen. Though his ship was still buried in the woods, he made no effort to repair or activate it again. His duties were done. He now spent his mornings chasing squirrels, afternoons napping on the porch, and evenings curled beside Owen's bed. He learned to enjoy the slow rhythm of Earth, where the stakes were no longer galactic but personal. The other dogs resumed their lives, each now carrying a quiet pride in what they had become. They no longer feared judgment. They no longer needed to justify their place. They were not commanders, they were family. And in that role, they found purpose deeper than any mission could provide. Sometimes, when the stars shone especially bright, Hubble would glance up at the sky, his eyes tracing constellations he knew by heart. Somewhere out there, Sirius remained, its lights cold and orderly, its doctrines intact. But he did not miss it. On Earth, among trees and laughter, among the scent of cut grass and the sound of a child's voice, he had found something greater. He had come to evaluate but stayed to experience. He had arrived as a monitor but remained as a friend. He was no longer just an agent of Sirius, he was Owen's dog. And so the story of the good boy from the stars ended not with a conquest or return, but with a choice to belong. In a world where dogs were never meant to lead, they instead taught humanity what it meant to love.